David Orlofsky, and this is the Rabbi Orlofsky Show. And this is our second episode in our special Pesach program. Welcome to our Pesach program. And we have a sponsor. I read you as it is written. It's been 10 years since seminary, and while I've lost touch, I never stopped listening and re-listening to your shiurim from our Masil Sharm classes. It was all I had for a while, but a year ago, I discovered your podcast, and down the rabbit hole I went, starting with episode 1. That was a lot of fun. I didn't have a fancy bookcase then that I used as to film in front of. I was standing in a little corner of my bedroom. Looked more like a hostage video, but it was a lot of fun. I'm so happy that you are doing this, and I'm honored to sponsor an episode. May you live to 120 in Mitzvah Hashem. It's no secret. I have health problems. I have different things, and here in Israel, you're not allowed to ever reveal anything. I was once in the drugstore, and a friend of mine was like 3 people back, and he calls out to me. He says, "How you doing?" I said, "Baruch Hashem." He says, "Baruch Hashem, and why are you in the drugstore?" I said, "Baruch Hashem, they have medicine for my gout. Baruch Hashem, they have medicine for my high blood pressure. Baruch Hashem, they have medicine for my diabetes. Baruch Hashem." And all the Israelis are like, and the druggist says, "You have to tell everybody everything." But what can I tell you? I've mentioned this in the past. Some people say that, I feel like before you say something, you stop and you consider if it's appropriate or not. And regardless, you say it anyway. So what can I tell you? I wear my heart on my sleeve. That's just the way I am. But the famous story of Israel Meltzer, where he developed tuberculosis. He developed tuberculosis because the butcher was trying to rent out his spare room to a yeshiva bacha, and nobody wanted to because it smelled so bad, because he used to leave the hides hanging. So Mrs. Meltzer felt bad for him, so he rented the room, and from the hides and all that, he eventually developed tuberculosis. So after this was discovered, he'd already arranged the shidduch, and the girl's family wanted to break it off, and the girl didn't. They went to the Chavetz Chaim, and they asked the Shaila, and the Chavetz Chaim said, "Gesund has nothing to do with arichas yom. You'll live a long, sick life." My mother was suffering from heart failure for like 30 years. She had diabetes. She had everything you can imagine my mother had. And people would say to me, and she lived almost to 90, People said, "How's your mother doing?" I said, "Maintaining her usual low level of health, So Amir Hashem, I appreciate this bracha. Make it to 120. If only to keep my spiritual illness going. Kidding. Sponsored Liloi Nishmas, my brother Moshe Yoel ben Yaakov Yosef, and this chus my sister. I'm going to do the best I can here. Shendel Liftcha Bas Gershana finds her zilug. Amir Hashem, all good things, and the person is sponsoring this anonymously, but we had the chus of being together for years, and we've been in touch. And the true test of a friendship is it doesn't matter how often you see each other, but when you do, it's something special. So thank you so much for this, and I hope it'll be a chus for everybody. So now I have a special treat for you. A little video treat. I'd like you to watch my grandchildren begin to say, this is a smattering of my grandchildren. Baruch Hashem, I've been blessed with many grandchildren. And usually you have some kind of a say of whether or not you're going to have children. But grandchildren, that's completely out of your hands. So here are a collection of my grandchildren doing the Mah Nishtana. Okay, hope you enjoyed that. I know you never get a chance to hear the Mah Nishtana. These are not all the kids who will be at my Seder say the Mah Nishtana. Yeah. But isn't that nice? Isn't that a nice thing? You know. So why am I doing this? Because I want to talk about the children. It's got to be the little kinderlach, the little kinderlach. It's gonna be the little. Okay. Anyway, children are a big focus of the Seder. Obviously, we do a lot of things to get the children to ask. What ultimately is the purpose of karpus, says the Gemara? So the children should ask. They see you dipping a vegetable. What's going on? You make kiddush, you make a motzi. Then you take the Seder plate off the table. What's going on? They fill up the cup. All of this is, of course, to inspire the children to ask the Mah Nishtana. And they practice it in school. Mah Nishtana halayla hazemika aleilas. Or the more generic, Mah Nishtana halayla hazemika aleilas. Or the tate. And the fear kashes. Right? They sing the little song, you know. De'eshtin kasher, shebecho aleilos, kol leilot hashana, anachnu oklim, chametz u'matzah, anachnu rotzim, anachnu oklim, chametz u'matzah, halayla hazeh, halayla shabezah. Anyway, so they asked the Mah Nishtana. And then we're basically done with them. Now, some people want to write the bed. Some people put them to bed before they even get the answer. Yeah. And the children are apparently left out of the process. So I want to discuss a very strange minhag in Klal Yisrael. And this is, of course, the Meaning of Afikomen. There are two versions of it. One version I can't really explain. And I'll show you why in a minute. The father takes the Afikomen, hides it someplace, and then the children run around looking for it. The reason I have a problem with that is because you're basically encouraging the children not to be at the Seder. So I understand, you know, it was like this little kid who was on an airplane running around, making trouble, knocking over things, and the stewardess said, "Kid, do me a favor, play outside." I guess if you want to, get the kid to, be out of the way, it's a great method. Keep them busy. But we want the kids to participate. Right? So the other minhag is what my father did, and since it's my minhag, it's clearly the correct one. And that is, he would take it and stick it in between his pillows that he was doing Haseba on. And you had to try to steal it from him. Now, my father was not one of those warm and fuzzy kind of dads. He wasn't going to make this easy for you. That wasn't his philosophy. My father didn't know how to say a nice thing. He just didn't. He told me once it was a shita. So when you do something right, I expect it. When you do something wrong, it's my job as a parent to point it out. But that's not why. I think it had more to do with his general upbringing. He just couldn't bring himself to say nice things. So he was not going to make it easy for you. So my older brothers, who were much more proactive, they worked very hard. They would form teamwork to try to steal the Afikomen. It was very hard. One time, one of my brothers was bringing my father his soup and spilled it on his lap. Desperate times demand desperate measures. My father was like, ah! And when he leaned forward, they grabbed the Afikomen. So, okay, I've learned from that. I wear asbestos trousers. But, it's the idea is the kids have to try to take the Afikomen. Of course, you can't finish the Seder without the Afikomen. So you say to the kids, okay, give me back the Afikomen. And the kid says, only if you give me a prize. Now begin the negotiations. What do you want? That's too much. I'm not going to get you that. I'll get you this. Okay. You work out some kind of a deal and you get your matzah back, which by now is basically matzah meal, and you sprinkle a little bit on top of a different piece of matzah, which between me and you could have used in the first place. Now, what is the message of this minig? Well, the message is clear, and that is we want to teach our children the importance of stealing and extortion. Steal things and then extort money from the person who wants it back. Now, this comes in handy later when your kids want to get a house or want to be supported in kollel. But at first blush, that would seem like strange values to try to teach our children. Where does this come from? So I saw it brought down once, that it's actually brought down from Yetzias Mitzrayim. Because when we left Egypt, we asked the Egyptians to borrow their gold and silver. Clearly, we had no intention of giving it back. And so therefore, we teach the children to take the Afikomen and not to get it back unless they get some kind of a cash prize. Now, one could ask the question over there, well, isn't that a little dishonest? Isn't that Genevas Das? Is that a good thing to do? So the Gemara tells the following. Now, when Alexander the Great captured Israel, so different nations showed up to bring complaints against the Jewish people. And one was a representative from Egypt. And he said, the Jews borrowed our gold and silver, borrowed our clothing, borrowed our clothing. They never gave it back. They stole everything. We demand, Alexander, that you make the Jews return everything that we have. Alexander didn't know what to do. He was busy starting his department store. Just kidding. Anyway, so he said to the Jews, well, answer them. So they select somebody, and he says, no problem. Let's calculate how much 600,000 people working for 430 years should be paid. And basically, you'll give us the difference. So the Egyptian said, give me a chance to respond. Then he snuck out of town. Why? Because we were slaves. We were entitled to be paid for our work, which we were forced into. Why those particular numbers that some sort of explains is because it was really 600,000 was only chamushim. It was 1/5. So even though we were only there for 86 years that the actual Sheba took place, it was 5 times 600,000 people. But the Torah uses the number 600,000. So go and tell them a chazal that it was really 5 times that amount. But we know it was really 86 years, but it's written in the Torah 430 years. So it says Chassam Sofer, it was the same proportion because 86 times 5 is 430. And 600,000 times 5 is the amount of Jews that were actually there. So it works out to the same. 600,000 people for 430 years is 3 million people working for 86 years. But okay. But it means that when we took the gold and the silver, we were entitled to it. Right? Kodesh Baruch Hu says, the nation that enslaves you, I'll judge, and you'll walk out b'rechush gadol, with great wealth. Why? Because either they'll pay you because that's the right thing to do, or I'll make sure that you get it because you're entitled to it. So we walked out of Egypt with all of these things because between me and you, we were entitled to it. There was this scary video of us in Bottom made years ago. This is a very high-powered father, and he's got meetings all day, and he's running these around. And his son is holding a little jar of pennies, and he calls him up and he says, "Dad, can I ask you a question?" And he says, "Not now, I'm busy. And he keeps calling him, He says, "Okay, what do you want?" So he says, "How much do you make an hour?" So, "What do you want to know?" That goes, "Just tell me how much you make an hour." He says, "I make so much." So he looks at his jar of pennies and says, "Can I buy 10 minutes of your time?" This tells a story about this teenage girl who stole the Afikomen. And the father says, "Okay, what do you want?" She says, "How about a conversation?" I'm sorry. These things get to me. It's not because I'm emotional. It's just since my heart attack, it just comes out. It's because of my medications. But anyway, there's certain stories I can't tell without crying. But the idea is, how many parents will tell you the most important thing in my life are my children? How much time do you spend with them? I can't. I'm busy making money for my children. Busy doing things for my children. I haven't got time. So we come to the Seder, and we send these kids to school, pay good money for the tuition, to learn a Mah Nishtana. And the little kid stands up in the chair and he goes, "Mah Nishtana," he does his own Mah Nishtana. And then we say, "Good, now go to bed," and the adults are going to have a Seder. Or go in the corner and play with your new toy that we got you, So the kid is taught to steal our attention. Because you're not going to end the Seder without me. Don't forget about me. What an important message. I have to tell you how many times I see parents who don't have time for their kids. They don't have time. They're busy learning, they're busy working. Suddenly the kid goes off the derech, got all the time in the world. They run to this gadol for a bracha, they run to this rebbe for a bracha. They take the kids on trips, they do whatever they can to try to get the kid back. An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. Yeah, the Seder is keneged arba banim dibra Torah. He got it to lebincha b'yamahu leimor. It's about the children. So somebody was at the Seder of Rav Moshe Shapiro, and there were chashuvim there, and the whole Seder was the children, telling them stories, telling them midrashim, telling them things. Yeah. So someone said, "Well, of course, because he learned by Rav Hutner, and that's what Rav Hutner's Seder was." Someone said to me, "I know somebody who was at Rav Hutner's Seder, and it was the same thing. He spent the whole time talking to the children." Yeah. Somebody was by a big Rosh Hashiva's house, he told me, and he's telling jokes, telling stories. Every time a kid says something, he tosses him a nut. He's giving out nuts. He says, and I was trying to, be part, have a Seder. I would every now and then I ask him a lunatic question because I don't know. Here, have a nut. It's kid-centric, kid-friendly. Every now and then I try to find fun things, that for the Seder, So one year I was in America before Pesach. I always go to when I go to Target, I go to the discount center going out of there, and they had these alligators, rubber, that you put it in your finger and you pull it back and it shoots across the room. So the Targum, translates Svardeya as crocodiles. It's like when you picture the little, frogs jumping around everywhere, when they're crocodiles, that's a whole different picture. So when we came to it, I explained that. I gave all my grandchildren the little crocodiles. Forget it. It was the time of their life. And it's, you know, um, the fact is that the kids remember these memories. I was in a question and answer once in Cleveland at a Shabbaton. It was a Discovery Shabbaton in Cleveland. I remember this many years ago. And one of the people asked the question, why do we say Yizkor on Pesach? So, okay, there was more of a lumbus to the question, because really Yizkor was meant to be said on Yom Kippur, because Yom Kippur, because even the dead are judged, and so you bring them up, etc. Move to the Shalosh Regalim, and the truth of the matter is, why are we talking about dead people on Yom Tov? We should be talking more about more positive thoughts, etc. So I used to say that my friend Dr. Stern, who is one of the top implant specialists in the world, he's based here in Yerushalayim, but he goes to America. You need implants. Yeah, I highly recommend him. But in any event, he had a Rebbe, in communists, Simcha Zisel Lubavitz, Rabbi Yerucham, famous mashgiach from the Mir, his son. Simcha Zisel, obviously named for the Alter Kelm. And he says when a person would ask a question in Shir, he would very often say, the ersten teretz is a weiß nicht, aber the zweite teretz is. First answer is, I don't know, but here's the second answer. Yeah. And he'd give what he thought was the answer. So I've picked that up. So I didn't say this, but I thought to myself, the ersten teretz is a weiß nicht. I don't really know, but I'll tell you what I think. I said, the holidays are a time when we're so keenly aware of the people who are no longer with us. We sit at the Seder, and a lot of people who themselves may not be observant say, this is what my father used to do. My father used this, my father did that. We specifically around the holidays remember the people who went before us. Children have such keen memories. For the Seder, I used to make this thing called Gan Eden chicken. I'm not going to give you the recipe. It's in the Esha Torah Pesach cookbook. You can get it yourself. Yeah, it's in a orange ginger sauce. It's very, very tasty, very nice. Yeah, and we used to make it every year. And one year, I made something else, and the children were appalled. They spoke to my wife because they know it's a waste of time to talk to me, and said, the Seder is Gan Eden chicken. Now, it's not brought down in any svarim. I've looked it up. Nowhere does it say, minag le'achol of Gan Eden b'leil Seder, but this is what they were used to. Kids remember. Kids know the way they're supposed to do things. So as much as possible, you Seder, and you have to ask yourself, how do I make it kid-friendly? So one way to do this is by giving them a certain amount of latitude when it comes to the songs. If you're from my generation, you know, Vehi Shamda, Lavaiseinu velanu. For my kids, it's Vehi Shamda, Lavaiseinu. Right? That's what the one I want to say. So I sing mine and I say, go ahead, sing yours. There was one year where the children together all got together and they came before the Seder and they said, we want to sing the Seder to tunes. We made up tunes for each paragraph. Okay. But the way you make the story come alive meaningful. Like I told you, Moshe Shapiro would sit there and tell them over midrash, but tell them over stories. And so some people would put on Hatzakah and little skits, and they dress people up, and they do all kinds of things. And, okay, whatever works. I remember when I was in NCSY, so we had a series of talks about group dynamics. And they gave you different icebreakers and openers to, get people, if you wanted to give a class, So they came up with all kinds of different methods and tricks and things. And I would teach this over to advisors. So they say, do you use these? I said, I don't have to use these. I'm so good. I have a gift for getting people annoyed. Yeah, so that when I ask a question, it really bothers them. I may have told this story once, I was learning Kaila and I asked some kasha, and the guy there says, that's a Dovid Orlofsky kasha. I said, what do you mean, like a klutz kasha? I said, no. All day in yeshiva, you ask kashas. He says, but when you ask a kasha, after you ask it, it bothers you. You're left with like, yeah. Sometimes when I have to say the Torah, I just ask the question, I don't even give the answer. Just to get people, yeah, why is that? What do you do? And so if you say, okay, I have to tell over the story of Yetzias Mitzrayim, how am I going to do this in a way that makes it meaningful for the kids? And there are kids of all ages. What's going to be meaningful to a little kid is not what's going to be meaningful to an adolescent, is not what's going to be meaningful to a teenager, is not going to be meaningful to a more adult child. And you try to run the Seder on different levels that's going to appeal to different age groups at different times. And my Rebbe, Rabbi Yaakov Wales Atzal, he once developed a Haggadah game where every time you ask a good kasha, so you got a point, and there was like a little board there, and then you collect prizes, and there's no question about it. Yeah, I know certain people, they have treats, whatever the treat is, and every time a kid asks a good question, he says, oh, here's my treat. Problem is that, so there's the kids who don't ask good questions, they don't get any treats, so to my mind, there's a participation award, and that's what the Afikomen is. The fact that I stayed up for the Seder means I get a present. You owe me something for the fact that I'm here. So think about the Kinderlach at the Seder. There's an old expression that says there's a lawyer with 10 years experience, and there's a lawyer with 1 year experience 10 times. Not the same thing. And so there are people who have had 10 Pesach Seders, and there are people who had one Pesach Seder 10 times. And it's the same thing. And so Chayav Adam Liras is Atzma. Every person has to see himself as if he came out of Egypt, which means that the key word when it comes to the Seder is relevance. It's got to be meaningful to us. We have to give it over in a way, I may have told this, it was one of the nicest introductions I ever got. Rabbi Klein from Mikdash Melech. He used to speak there just for his introductions. He used to give great introductions. And he said, the chatzotzros, the trumpets that Moshe made were buried with him. And they had to make new trumpets. And he said, Meir Shapiro says, because even though the tune stays the same, the instrument has to change from generation to generation. This is Rabbi Orlofsky is the instrument we need in this generation. That was one of the nicest introductions I ever got. But it means I have to look at the Seder and say, how is this going to be meaningful to the people who are gathered together here? It takes effort, it takes work. Yeah. if you're cleaning for Pesach, and shopping for Pesach, and cooking for Pesach, all of those things, that's a lot of preparation. Easier than going away to a hotel. Hotel, you have to, do all the packing and and schlepping and all that kind of stuff. If you go to Orlando, you get this close of both. You get to pack up everything, schlep everything, and then cook and clean and serve. So it's mamish alamaylas, yeah. So you're right. There's a lot of preparation. Don't just have another Seder. Have the Seder for the children who are there. Obviously, there are no children there, and it's just adults or whoever it is. Okay, so you have to make it meaningful for each person who's there. But the focus, and that's the stories that I heard from various Gedolim, the focus are the children. Don't let them become props. Don't let them become lost in the process. Make sure that it is a kid-centric Seder, and however that takes place, whatever you have to do to make that meaningful and exciting, there are ways of creating anticipation. Little children become giggly, and it's exciting as it's going to be, and you can see this when it comes to still in the Afikomen. I'm not as tough as my dad was, but you don't want to make it too easy. You want them to feel like they have to work hard to get it. Now, in order that there's some sort to the Seder, we always say you can't steal the Afikomen until the Yishamda, Once that happens, there are little children creeping all around me, and when I always do the same thing. I say, Ganef, give it back. And my little children get that, and they're like, okay, there's Zadie. And others have been trained by their parents. Not unless you give me a present. All right, I'll give you a present. All right, here's it back, So, but the excitement and anticipation, when in Parshas Ba'aloischa, they ask Yisro, stay with us and you'll be for us a Nayim. Rashi makes two pshatim. One pshat is, we'll see it through your eyes. The excitement that a newcomer to Judaism has, we're going to enjoy that vicariously through you. It's always, when you see people come to Etzra the first time, go to the Kaisel the first time, experience something the first time, you see the excitement, the delight, the awe that sometimes we tend to take for granted. Right? You ever go to somebody's house, they're like, wow, this kitchen is beautiful. Yeah. They've had it already for a few years, they've noticed all the flaws, all the imperfections. Someone coming from the outside looks at it and says, wow, magnificent. So we want the children to be our eyes at the Seder, that we should have that excitement to be able to maintain that thrill and that childlike wonder that people can sometimes lose. So don't forget the little kinderlach at the Seder, and make sure you have treats. When I was growing up, it was Barton's chocolates. I don't know if they still exist. I haven't seen them for years. My father used to give me at the Seder, give every kid there, a whole chocolate matzah, solid chocolate matzah. It had little nuts, pieces of nuts inside of it, so it gave it a little bit of a crunch. But it was so exciting. You had that chocolate matzah. So we went to, when we did our shopping, me and my wife, and looked around for why it might be little treats, little bags of cotton candy, things like this that we can give the children, that they should be able to have that sense of excitement. Okay, that's it for this episode. If you want to find out more about the show, you can go to my website, RabbiOrlofsky.com. You can leave a comment. You can sponsor an episode. You can send an email. And we'll see you the next time. This is Dovid Orlofsky, and this is the Rabbi Orlofsky Show.
It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show. Torah and Simcha, ready to go. The Rabbi Orlofsky Show. knowledge and wisdom will help you grow. Lots of fun in every episode, and we don't have to rhyme. No, we don't. It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show on RabbiOrlofsky.com. Torah anytime, YouTube and more. It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show. Torah and Simcha, ready to go. It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show. Till next time, till we meet again. It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show. It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show. It's the Rabbi Orlofsky Show.